During her lifetime, Mother Teresa was among the top 10 women in Gallup's annual Most Admired Men and Women poll 18 times, taking first place several times in the 1980s and 1990s. But few people know that this philanthropist was actually a religious fanatic lacking in compassion. Also, according to various estimates, Mother Teresa has earned from $3 to $5 billion for the Catholic Church. Let's understand. Poverty, disease, disasters. Mother Teresa was spotted at every more or less significant event. She whispered words of comfort, fed with a spoon, called to pray. But there was no real help. Here's some interesting timeline. 1963, there was an earthquake in Skopje, the capital of Macedonia. More than 1,000 people died. 3/4 of the buildings were destroyed. Mother Teresa blessed the staff of the American military hospital departing to the capital of Macedonia, but didn't allocate a penny from her fund to her hometown. The Americans stayed in devastated Skopje for 15 days. 10 of them were spent on the installation and dismantling the hospital, 5 on photo shoots. By the way, 500 Soviet military engineers worked in Macedonia for 6 months. 1984, a tank with toxic substances with a volume of 60,000 liters exploded at a pesticide plant of American company Union Carbide, located in Indian city of Bhopal. 4,000 people died at once, 21,000 died within a few days. Nearly 600,000 people were affected. A catastrophe was comparable to that in Chernobyl. Mother Teresa arrived urgently in the city and explained to its people that this was God's punishment and that therefore they should accept it and pray. She managed to stop the actions against the company. Union Carbide management paid out almost $500 million to victims and relatives of the victims a few years later. Not a single American employee was held accountable for the accident. 7 locals were jailed, and Mother Teresa's foundation received a tidy sum into the account. 1988, Mother Teresa's visit to Armenia's Spitak after the earthquake was widely reported, but there's no mention of the victims being helped financially. 1993, an earthquake in Indian Latra province killed 8,000 people. 5 million people found themselves on the street. Some other organizations built them houses while Mother Teresa posed on their background, not having sent a penny to the victims. This all started on the 26th of August in 1910, in Skopje, the capital of Macedonia. There, in a wealthy Albanian Catholic family, a girl was born, Agnes Goj. 1919, the head of the family, Nikola Bojagiu, a nationalist who advocated cleansing Skopje of Slavs, that is Serbs, Macedonians and Bulgarians in the city's annexation to Albania, is murdered. 1928, Agnes graduated from a Serbian gymnasium and left for Ireland, where she entered the Sisters of Loreto, a monastic order. She would never speak her native language again, speaking through an interpreter when visiting Yugoslavia. 1931, the girl took her tonsure and the name Teresa. She was sent to Calcutta to teach at St. Mary's Girls' School. 1946, Teresa was allegedly visited by Jesus Christ. He told her to quit school, put on a sari, and go help the poor. However, Mother Teresa was repeatedly confused in her testimony. She said, for example, that God had been appearing to her regularly since she had been 5 years old. 1948, the Calcutta authorities gave Teresa the former temple of goddess Kali. The temple would henceforth be a home for the dying. The staff was recruited from the Sisters of the Missionaries of Love, founded by a nun. 1969, the BBC made a documentary about Mother Teresa. Journalist Malcolm Muggeridge, who made the film about Teresa, said, "It was wonderful that there was no electricity at the home for the dying, but the filming was successful because the divine light emanated." Although cameraman Ken McMillan later claimed that this was simply the first time he had used the new Kodak film for a night shot, there was no internet in those days and some cameraman couldn't shout down the mighty BBC corporation. And people were always more interested in reading about miracles than in discovering the new properties of film. As a result of powerful PR, the number of nuns of the order came close to 5,000, volunteers up to 40,000. There were more than 500 new temples in 121 countries of the world, and Mother Teresa was recognized as a saint. Hospices, help centers for the seriously ill and social homes were opening everywhere, although Mother Teresa still called them homes for the dying. What these homes for the dying were really like, Mary Lawden, who had worked in one of them, told us in the documentary Angel from Hell. My first impression was as if I saw footage from a Nazi concentration camp, as all the patients were also shaved naked. There were only cots and primitive wooden beds. 2 halls. Men were slowly dying in one, women in the other. Practically no treatment, only aspirin and other cheap medicines. IVs were in short supply, needles were used repeatedly. The nuns washed them in cold water. When I asked why didn't they disinfect them in boiling water, I was told that it wasn't necessary and there was no time for that. I remember a 15-year-old boy who initially had the usual kidney pain, but it was getting worse and worse as he wasn't receiving antibiotics and later he needed an operation. I said that in order to cure him all I had to do was call a taxi, take him to the hospital and pay for the inexpensive operation. But I was turned down with the explanation, if we do it for him, we'll have to do it for everyone. Mary's words were confirmed by the other volunteers of the Sisters of the Order of the Missionaries of Love. No medical professionals were admitted to Mother Teresa's institutions. Those who came for inspection were horrified by unsanitary conditions, but their outraged voices drowned in a sea of praise for the holy woman. There is something beautiful about the way poor people accept their fate, how they suffer like Jesus on the cross. Teresa admonished, banning pain relief. The main task of the staff was to persuade the sick to accept the Catholic faith. The dying were baptized without asking, a wet cloth on his forehead, a prayer, that was it. He was now Catholic. Mother Teresa assured that her organization fed over 1,000 people a day in Calcutta. According to Arup Chatterjee, the doctor who investigated Mother Teresa's activities, there were only 3 soup kitchens, and they could feed a maximum of 100 people. And the meals were distributed only to those who had ration cards. It was impossible for non-Christians to get them. The saint also lied about the number of schools for 5,000 poor children. There was only one for 100 of kids. She also lied about volunteers picking up the infirm from the streets and taking them to shelters. In fact, no one was picking up anyone, and ambulances donated to the order were being used for transporting the nuns. People say that there were also documents found which revealed the sale of children from the orphanage, but the case was quickly hushed up. 1979, Mother Teresa was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for her work for bringing help to suffering humanity. 1997, on the 13th of March, Mother Teresa resigned as head of the Order of Mercy. Half a year later, on the 5th of September, she died. Almost immediately, the Catholic Church started the process of beatification, followed by canonization, although, according to the rules, this procedure cannot begin before 5 years from the date of death. And finally, 2016. In St. Peter's Square in Rome, in the presence of 120,000 people, Pope Francis canonized Mother Teresa. And for the Vatican, she was a saint indeed, because according to conservative estimates, her work has brought the Vatican between $3 and $5 billion. It was a case of money doesn't stink. After all, Mother Teresa had little interest in the origin of the dough. In 1981, Jean-Claude Duvalier, the dictator president of Haiti, gave $1.5 million to Teresa. Never seen the poor people being so familiar with their head of state, Mother Teresa said hypocritically. Jean-Claude Duvalier had been in power for 10 years before Mother Teresa arrived at the age of 19 after the death of his dictator father. Haiti at the time was the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, where corruption and disease were rampant and where the Duvalier family had committed tens of thousands of overt and covert political murders. She clearly liked the Republic of Haiti and its leader and visited again in 1983. This time, after saying that Duvalier loved the poor and their love is reciprocated, she was awarded the country's highest honor, the Legion of Fame, and received $1 million. Mutual love in Haiti ended after 3 years, when the people overthrew their beloved dictator and he repaid the people he loved by stealing hundreds of millions of dollars from them, fleeing with them to his residence on the French Riviera. She also received money from Yasser Arafat, whom she met in Lebanon. The order's account was replenished after Teresa's visit to Albania. She had a nice chat with the country's leader, Ramaz Alia, then laid a wreath at the tomb of his communist predecessor, Enver Hoxha, who had proclaimed his country the world's first atheist state, closing all churches and persecuting priests. Shootings of clergymen of all faiths continued throughout his reign. But all this didn't prevent Nun Teresa from laying a wreath on Enver Hoxha's grave and saying many commendable words about him. Later, Agnes Bojagiu visited Enver's widow. She said of Albania's new leader that she was happy for her people, who have such a leader. People of Albania didn't appreciate their happiness, and in 1992 they removed Rama's Elijah from power and imprisoned him a year later. British media tycoon Robert Maxwell stole $600 million from his employees' pension fund and sent part of it to Mother Teresa. American businessman Charles Keating, who also embezzled money from fund contributors, nipped off $1.25 million from his $252 million to the saint. When he was jailed, Teresa asked for leniency. Prosecutor Paul Turley suggested she return the stolen money to its owners. The correspondence ended there. Having started a friendship with Indira Gandhi, Teresa succeeded in getting her monastic order exempted from inspections. She advised journalists, who asked embarrassing questions about the expenditure of funds, to talk to God. Documents were revealed shortly before her death, showing that about 7% of donations went to charity. The rest, including Teresa's Nobel Prize, went to the Vatican Bank in Rome and was spent on the Catholic Church. What did this human believe in? Mother Teresa, as befits a Catholic, was against abortion and divorce. But when it came to people with whom she was friends and from whom she could profit, her position changed. She supported Indira Gandhi in forced sterilization of the poor and called Princess Diana's decision to divorce Charles the only right thing to do once love had left the family. Teresa also called for a ban on contraception, the argument that they not only protect against conception, but also against certain diseases, she didn't accept. AIDS is just retribution for wrong behavior, she argued. Mother Teresa preferred to travel the world in private jets or first class. Often the airlines themselves paid for her travel. Mother Teresa didn't want to solve her health problems in her centers, preferring hospitals in the United States, Italy, and India. She claimed that she couldn't afford the cataract surgery for $6,500 at St. Francis Hospital in Pittsburgh, and a year later, she had the surgery at the New York Medical Center even more expensive. At no time during her heart operations did Teresa refuse painkillers to suffer as Jesus did. She spent the last months of her life in a room full of modern equipment. Interestingly, the Catholic Church can only declare a person a saint if they've performed a miracle, which wasn't so easy to find. At first they tried to declare disappearance of a malignant 17-centimeter tumor in the stomach of an Indian Monica Besra. Allegedly, on the anniversary of Mother Teresa's death, the woman's nurse placed a medallion on woman's belly that was used to touch the body of the future saint on the day of her funeral. She prayed and soon the tumor dissolved. But the husband of the healed woman admitted that her wife had not cancer but an ovarian cyst, and the doctors had dealt with it. Teresa's beatification was postponed until a more fitting miracle was found. Brazilian Marcílio Haddad Andrino was suffering from brain cancer. His wife Fernanda prayed to Mother Teresa and it went away. There were no medics involved in this story, so it was impossible to confirm or deny it. Here she is, Mother Teresa. Thank you for watching and see you on our channel.